Hi, I'm Sami Valentine, and I'm the author of the Red Witch Chronicles. Now, I'm really excited to do this interview for Stephanie. Thank you so much for inviting me. Now, you had a lot of good questions, so let me lay it on you. So, first question is, how did you come up with the story concept for the Red Witch Chronicles? Now, the origins of my series is kind of weird because I actually started with the historical prequel series. That's actually fully written, it just hasn't been published. What readers now know as the Red Witch Chronicles actually starts in the present day. But the series really was born when I spent a month living in Prague about 3 years ago. There's something about Prague that is really interesting to me. I think maybe it's the history, maybe it's architecture. It's really a city that's at the crossroads of many cultures and many empires. So I really found that really interesting. Another place that I guess kind of made this series, especially with the present day books, is the idea of who are you if you don't have memories? Like, who are you without that? And a lot of my main character's journey is all about discovering herself and who she is without the, I guess, burden or benefit of her own memories. Next question is, number 2, is what do you love about writing urban fantasy and what do you hate or maybe dislike about it? Now, I love so much about urban fantasy because I like being able to take these supernatural concepts, these creatures, and really kind of putting them through, I guess, hell. I'm one of those authors that really does like making sure that my characters, especially my protagonists, really have to protag. They really gotta, get in there through the plot, and I don't like giving them plot armor. So I do like that. But what I like about urban fantasy is that you can do so much to play around with different themes and concepts, but it never feels political or partisan because you are kind of using this fantasy setting, the supernatural world, to kind of play around with universal themes. Now, on the flip side, what do I dislike about urban fantasy? I think it's not so much the genre that I have problems with. It's more like I think the pressure that sometimes writers and readers put on each other. And by that I mean especially if you're in the indie publishing world, a lot of writers are really nervous about subverting reader expectations. They're nervous about the tropes that they use. As somebody who loves this genre, I mean, I write what I read. What I sometimes dislike as a writer is the feeling that I can't fully use this medium. There's some people who say, oh, it's urban fantasy, you have to only write first person, your character has to always be feisty and forthright and running headlong into danger, and oh, you have to have, X, Y, and Z trope in here, and, sometimes, like for me, like, I'm a contrary person, I'm always like, don't tell me what to do. So I guess that would be something that I'm still navigating my feelings on, to put it diplomatically. The third question is, when it comes to world building, do you have any particular tricks or techniques? For world building, I really try to think about what actually is realistic, whether it comes to a supernatural government or a villain's motivations. I'm already asking the reader to suspend a lot of disbelief just with my premise alone. So it doesn't make sense in a lot of ways to have a supernatural government that doesn't act like any government you've ever heard of, or to have, a villain or main character or something, maybe not act in a way that works with the logic that I've set up. I mean, it does sometimes lead to my characters, because I don't like to give them plot armor, doing stupid things and dealing with the consequences, because my characters they might be supernatural creatures, but they still at the end of the day, suffer from the same things everybody else does with the human condition. So I try to make sure that there's always a logic and I adhere to it whatever I set up for my world building. Now, the other, I guess, technique is that I try to be super organized. I have a big story compendium that has all my notes from characters to mythology to, just what buildings, blueprints and stuff like that. So I try to stay as organized as possible to keep up continuity. The fourth question is, what was the most difficult part of the publishing process for you? The most difficult part of this whole process for me has always been my own mindset. For a long time, about 10 years, I had what I guess you could call writer's block. I'm a cliche. I was in a creative writing program and dropped out of it to do a different field because I had a adjunct professor who really did not like that I wrote urban fantasy, science fiction, any sort of speculative genre at all. And I had the feeling like, well, if I'm not writing a work of staggering genius, then why am I writing at all? So for me, the hardest part of this publishing process, especially since I already kind of have a background in marketing and branding and I know how to do those things, was just me getting over myself. I like what I write. I mean, it's, yes, I'm writing, urban fantasy, and yes, there's my old professor probably would hate it. But I mean, to be honest, I probably hate whatever she's publishing nowadays too. So I guess we are even. So yes, that is for me the mental battle. As a great line from Dune is this quote that says, "Fear is the mind killer," and I found it certainly to be true in my case. Now, the next question is, what does your writing space look like? Oh, that's a good question. And it does not have an answer because, as you can probably hear, if you can hear the distant sounds of Portuguese in the background, I do the digital nomad thing. My workspace changes wherever I go. I'm in Sao Paulo for the next few months. I was in Arizona before that. Before that, I was in France, Bulgaria, Lisbon. So I kind of have to find spaces to write. It's not always easy. In fact, I usually do my best writing when I am in a place for a while. But yeah, so I like to write at night. I try to have a roost. But yeah, the scenery can change, the languages change, and yeah, it's always a different, a new struggle for productivity every place that I go. But yeah, that's my workspace. What are your tricks for juggling writing while maintaining a personal life? My trick is to be an introvert. I guess that's not really a trick, that's a personality trait. I guess for me, I write at night, so I have to just be really careful about what I schedule during my writing times. I do take little breaks, like right now. I've been on a 10-day writing break since I finished my third book in the Red Witch Chronicles. So I do try to take breaks where I hang out with people and stuff like that. But I feel like every author is going to have a different struggle. For me, writing with doing the digital nomad thing can be difficult. But that's also part of the fun. What's the best piece of advice that you've received about writing? Put your butt in the chair. Books don't write themselves. At the end of the day, that's going to be the best piece of advice. You're never going to get better at writing unless you actually write. Oh, and the last question is, what is the best book that you've read recently? I think my favorite has been A Discovery of Witches, which is by Deborah Harkness. Now, thank you so much, Stephanie Mirro, for giving me this chance to do an interview and give me all these questions. So thanks again. I am Sami Valentine, the author of the Red Witch Chronicles, which you can actually find on Amazon in Kindle Unlimited. Have you read it and to see your review. Bye!